Hello, and welcome to another episode of Learn a Little Law with Walter J. Pick and Associates, and I'll be your host, Ishmael. Today we'll cover a very infamous topic, the petition against Jacques II, otherwise known as Travis Scott, and the subsequent interview with Charlemagne. Now, Charlemagne asks very specific legal questions, and he also answers questions while he's asking them, which is a very lawyer thing to do. It's almost as if he drafted questions and answers in the interview based on pending litigation to give Travis Scott a chance to answer certain specifics of said litigation. Furthermore, I want you to know that this is an interview. This is not a podcast. This is not a radio show, which Charlemagne also has. And in an interview, it gives the individual more time to, I don't want to say script things out, but think things through. That's a good phrase. It gives people time to think things through. But regardless if you think this interview is genuine or not, Travis is married to each and every statement he says, including the 472 times he says, 51 minutes. That has to be some sort of record. But like I said before, Travis is married to each and every statement he made without the potential of a divorce. Now, a marriage without the potential of a divorce are the worst kinds of marriages, or the best kind, depending on who you get married to. So go ahead and marry that like button, follow, subscribe, and comment. Don't be shy. Talk to me. I usually talk back. And with that said, let's dive right into the video.
A lot of the criticism, from the tragedy, they say, is in the poor planning and understaffing of the event. As an artist, do you have any involvement in any of that?
Well, I mean, as an artist, you just do the creative. As artists, we trust, professionals to make sure that, things happen and people leave, safely. And, we just trust in, the professionals to kind of just make sure that, people, are taken care of and, leaving safely. You link with professionals to handle that side of, the professionals.
Now, that's very well said, Travis. It sounds semi-authentic. However, he's generally right. If you hire an individual to do a certain task and the task is not performed, then they serve as a liability buffer for said task. Now imagine you throw a party and you hire a chef to cook food at the party. And at the end of the party, everybody, including the chef, blames you that the food tastes bad. Now, independent of you tampering with the food or hiring somebody you know cannot cook, is it fair to blame you that the steak au poivre tastes like monkey meat, given that you hired a chef to do that one job? Now that is Travis's parallel line of reasoning. Travis, as a performer, hires individuals that specialize and focus on security to handle security at said event. Therefore, if security goes awry, how am I to blame? Now, there are many factors that go into negligence, including if he heightened the danger or hired individuals he know were incompetent. However, we won't go into negligence today in this video. Today, we'll focus on gross negligence because Travis spent a bulk of his interview, about 30 to 35%, on gross negligence. And in my opinion, the reason for that is, one, Travis is going to stand by the professional buffer. Two, gross negligence is predicated on regular negligence. So if you prove somebody is gross negligent, then naturally you can prove somebody is ordinarily negligent. And three, gross negligence incorporates what I call sky's the limit damages. The legal term for these damages is exemplary damages, and they are essentially limitless. So with that said, let's define gross negligence. Definition, pause the video if you have to. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now the act in this situation is Travis Scott performing the concert. Now he did stop the concert a couple times, so the argument turns on he didn't stop the concert long enough, he should have stopped the concert completely, he should never began the concert, or he should have delayed the concert. So the act is pretty straightforward in this scenario. So the next element is, from the objective standpoint of the actor, was an extreme degree of risk. Now, generally speaking, when large groups of people gather, it is an extremely dangerous event. And we have seen this time and time again in similarly situated concerts, at festivals, and even at religious events. However, we as a society still gather in masses because we trust in,
the professionals
to mitigate or lessen that degree of risk. So from the standpoint of the actor, Travis in this scenario, was there an extreme degree of risk that night? Now, hypothetically speaking, if there is an occurrence outside the scope and event of the professionals, then the extreme degree of risk has returned. Say, for instance, Travis is performing at the concert and there is a fire that breaks out. From an objective standpoint, this fire is outside the scope and capacity of the professionals that you hired. And if you continue the concert, you may be liable for gross negligence. But the final element is the subjective element. Take the hypothetical of the event I mentioned before, a fire breaking out. The actor has to be subjectively aware of the fire. So if the performer is Stevie Wonder and he never sees a fire, he may not be liable for gross negligence because of the subjective element attached to gross negligence. Now, before I move forward, I must emphasize that gross negligence is judged by the actor's standpoint during the time of the event. And many people have a superpower. They have 20/20 hindsight, and they are professionals at anything that has already happened. What I want you to do, I want you to put on your Clark Kent glasses, if you have some, and suppress that superpower for the remainder of this video. So with that said, let's go into Travis's subjective awareness of that night.
Let's talk about that night, man. When did you find out things got as bad as they did? Now, that's the question everybody wants to know.
Yeah, it wasn't really until minutes until the press conference.
So you didn't know people that actually passed away and stuff?
No.
People said they collectively heard folks screaming help every time you stopped the song to get your attention. Did you hear any of those screams?
Nah, man. I just didn't hear that. I got music, I got my in-ears, but I just didn't hear that,
Now Travis is going what I call the Wayne's World defense. It's a very good movie. If you have time, go ahead and see it. The ways for defense can basically sum up as saying,
I was not aware of that.
So let's dive into general subjective awareness for a second before we talk about Travis's specific subjective awareness. Now this is the map of the concept. The orange circles is where the mass casualty event happened. It is reported that the mass casualty event happened either right before or right when Travis took the stage. And if you continue to look at this map, the star is where my group was standing. From our perception, there was no way to know, and no indication that there was a fatal event any time during that night. Furthermore, from our perception, the concert was relatively calm. So as you can see from my cell phone video, the concert from our perspective was relatively calm. I can hold my phone over without being bumped. There's ample room to stand. However, this perception is drastically different than other individuals' perception. Some experience the concert as unbearable, hellish. Now, all subjective perceptions are true and correct at the same time, which is the big issue with subjective awareness. For every individual that attended that one event, you can have that many subjective experiences, where the danger can be clear and obvious to some, but to others they are oblivious. So let's see where Travis Scott falls in this spectrum.
So as an artist, how much can you actually, I guess, help in that position?
You can only help what you can see. And then, whatever you're told, you know what I'm saying? Whenever somebody tells you to stop, you just stop.
Now, Travis just gave us a very important window into his criteria for his subjective awareness. One, what he sees and observes, and two, what he is told. Now, he gives us a third criteria later on in the video, but it's very nebulous, so we'll address it when we get to it. So in regards to his first criteria is what he observes and sees during events such as these. Now, as you can see from this video, this is the experience of how his concerts are closer to the stage. Furthermore, Travis is in the moment and he's at work. When artists perform at a concert, a lot of people see this and automatically assume that the artists are having a good time, that they're partying. Artists have to worry about stage cues, the guests, the track list, the DJ, people in their ear, and also safety. So in essence, artists have a completely different experience of what we assume them to have.
Break that down a little more. Like nobody knows what it's like being on stage except for other artists. So speak to us from that perspective of what you can see in here. It was like, what, 50,000 people?
Yeah, I mean, you got like a venue, filled with like 50,000 people. Mm-hmm. But it's like a sea. You got lights, you got sound, you got pyro, you got your in-ears, you got your sound, got your mic, got the music, you got band, there's all type of, stuff going on.
So in this next video, I want you to look out for danger. Pay attention to the top left portion of the video and tell me how many people do you see fall down. Now, as Travis mentioned before, the crowd ebbs and flows like the ocean. It's really a sea of people. Now, there are videos of individuals at the concert screaming for help. I'm not going to show it because it's very gut-wrenching and heartbreaking. But Travis does mention this in his interview.
It's hard to tell excitement from danger, so to speak?
Yeah, of course. Everything kind of just sounds the same.
So Travis's stance is that screaming is very hard to discern. So in this next clip, I want you to pay attention to a specific woman screaming and tell me what type of scream it is. So far, if we take Travis's words at face value, his well thought out, well planned responses do hold some weight. Now, in this next clip, Travis gives us his third criteria for subjective awareness: what he feels. Now, I'm not sure if Travis is a clairvoyant or he has ESP, but feeling a crowd is very hard to quantify. When you see or observe something, you quantify that. If you're told something, you quantify that as well. However, as noted, gross negligence has a subjective awareness element to it. So if he feels a crowd act a certain way and he believes his feeling, his ESP, his special powers, then this goes to the weight of gross negligence.
As far as the energy, it didn't feel like it was people didn't show up there to just be harmful.
Now, surprisingly, he mentioned that the energy he felt was not one that was harmful nor dangerous. What did you expect him to say? In this next clip, I want you to pay attention to three things. One, how deep you can see into the crowd. Two, focus on the screaming. And three, determine what type of energy the crowd is giving off. Now, Travis mentions that despite this chaos and all this visual and auditory murkiness, whenever he sees somebody in danger, he reaches out to help.
And it's so crazy because I'm that artist too. Anytime you can hear something like that, you want to stop the show. You want to make sure, fans get the proper attention they need, And anytime I could see anything like that, I did,
Typical for you to stop a show, to make sure fans in the crowd get the help they need. There's even footage of that night of you doing that during the set. Were you unable to sense like a difference in urgency this time around?
I mean, yeah.
When you did stop the show, how did you see that one person?
I mean, he was right there. You had you had people like just spread it out. And so I'm looking, I'm like, oh. So I just called down, and the medics just came in, responded, got him out.
We need somebody to help him. Somebody pass out right here. Somebody pass out right here. Hold on, don't touch him, don't touch him. Everybody just back up. Security, somebody help jump in real quick. Keep going. Just somebody jump in, come on, security. Get in there.
Now this video is the first part of the infamous smoking gun video. Now people point to the second part of this video, which is an individual being carried out by security, as evidence of Travis's subjective awareness of the danger. Now one, Travis has been performing concerts for 9 to 10 years, and people fall out all the time due to dehydration, alcohol, and drugs. Don't do drugs, kids. But this is a common occurrence at concerts. Furthermore, Travis waited until the
professionals
who he trusts to handle the individual. He even rushed professionals to aid the individual. Now, Travis's team would say he rushed professionals to help the individual because he cared about him. And the opposition would say he rushed security so that he could continue the concert. Now, regardless of the narrative, we have to take everything at face value. He saw somebody in danger, he called for help, he waited until the person got help. Now, he mentions an ambulance because an ambulance in the crowd is not common, and it is indicative of something traumatic happening. However, the presence of an ambulance is not a clear and concise indication that there is extreme risk of danger for everybody at the concert. An ambulance is not a fire, nor a mass stampede. And on top of that, Travis was waiting an extended period of time to get confirmation on exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
How normal is that to see ambulances and everything else at these festivals?
Well, it was lights, so and ambulances don't really have like red and blue lights.
So you thought it was
I don't. You don't know. You just looking at his lights. That's why I asked. I'm just like, yo, is it an ambulance? It's like, what's going on? You don't know if it's like somebody got some lights up there, doing some turn. You don't know. But I didn't get a response. So, you got a response from the fans. I asked everyone to put a hand up, and then didn't get a response from anything else. So just carried on.
It's an ambulance in the car. Whoa. Where's Drake?
Wow, the Marcus in a ray! We're not supposed to
Can't be in the front, not here.
Now, as you can see from the ambulance video, once Travis goes through his first criteria, what he sees and observes, he goes to a second, what he is told. He was waiting on individuals to tell him something. And Travis also addresses a point where a police officer talks to him earlier that day.
Since the early afternoon, like hours before the show even started, were you informed of any of that ahead of time?
Well, no. The police, he came and to my trailer, and he let me know that it was mishap at the merch booth earlier. They shut it down, but they opened it back up. They seemed to got it under control.
And was there ever any communication to you on stage that you should end this?
Well, yeah. I mean, they just told me right after, the guests get off stage, we're going to end the show. And that's what we did. Other than that, there was no other communication. It wasn't communication on why. It was just, that's what came through my ears,
Oh, so they didn't say stop now?
No, it wasn't.
Not only from Travis's recollection did the police officer say that everything was under control, but also an occurrence happening 3 hours before a concert is not indicative of the concert itself being in danger. Now, Travis claims that this is the extent of communication he received that night. He has no duty to ask why he stopped the concert early. He just follows directions. Now, if we take everything Travis has said at face value and incorporate all evidence available to us, what Travis says has a lot of merit. He seems to have a strong defense against gross negligence as it stands. However, in law, everybody has a motivation and agenda, which leads to many different recollections of the same event. I'm not saying anybody's lying. I'm not saying anybody's telling the truth. With that said, pending further discovery, everything Travis says has a possibility of being disproven. But until then, if we take Travis's words at face value, he seems to have a defense against gross negligence. Now, in the next video, we're going to cover negligence in depth and go line by line through the petition against Travis Scott. So until next time, be great and stay safe.